Okay, this is our final video in our section on recipe costing. We're going to talk about standardized recipes today. What is a standardized recipe? You've probably all heard that term, but aren't 100% on what it is. Well, here's a definition. Standardized recipe is a recipe written with sufficient detail that a range of cooks could prepare it as written and the results would be identical. It is the recipe that all cooks in the kitchen must follow when preparing a given dish. What does that definition mean? It means a recipe that is written with so much detail that anyone can prepare it. They know what type of pan to use. They know what temperature to use. They know what type of water to use, where to get it, right? Like so much detail. If anyone's ever done any computer programming, you have to be very detailed for the computer to know what to do. You can't just tell the computer to take out the garbage. You have to tell the computer to go to this closet, get a garbage bag, get out of the closet, go to this receptacle, empty that receptacle into the bag. You have to be very, very detailed in your recipe. And a standardized recipe is often going to include a lot of these things that are listed on your screen here. So grades and brands of ingredients. So not just does the recipe call for a 6-ounce steak, is it a triple A, Kobe, whatever, right? In order to create consistency in the recipe so the customer gets the same product every time. It also allows us to keep the cost consistent, because if the grade of the ingredient or the ingredient stays all the same, then the recipe that we costed out is going to be accurate, right? Type of pot or pan required, the cooking method, the portion size, storage prep information, plating instructions, maybe a photo or a diagram, right? But really, do we need to tell people what type of pan or pot to use? Well, yeah. I mean, take, for example, risotto. You should have made risotto in Soup and Veg by now, right? I think it's a wild mushroom risotto that you made. Did you use a frying pan or did you use a pot? Because using those two different tools will create a different product. If you use a frying pan, you're going to get more evaporation and you're going to have to add more stock to the recipe to complete it. If you're in a narrow pot, you're not going to have as much evaporation. Your stock isn't going to concentrate or be as flavorful. So it's very important when it comes to a flavor profile, which pot or pan or what size you use for something like risotto. And that applies to a lot of recipes across the board, right? So why do we use the standardized recipes? Well, like the first one I mentioned, so that it's consistent for our guests, right? You go into the restaurant and you get their wild mushroom risotto and it's the same every time they go in. If they had it great once and they come back and it's just sort of so-so, are they going to come back a third time? Maybe, but if it's different yet again, they're probably not going to come back a fourth time, right? So it's critical for consistency. I always like to talk about McDonald's with this. I mean, does McDonald's sell a great hamburger? Like, is the Big Mac like the best hamburger you've ever had? No, but no matter what McDonald's you go into, that Big Mac is a Big Mac, right? I've been in a McDonald's in Paris, France, and I've been in one in Hong Kong, and guess what? The Big Mac's the same. It may be a little Big Mac in France, but it's still a Big Mac. It's consistent, and that's why McDonald's and companies like that are so popular. Even in fine dining restaurants, you want that consistency. You want that return guest to come back in, right? I mentioned also, if we can keep the recipe created the same, using the same ingredients and the same grades of ingredients, then our costing sheets, the calculations that we did to set a price for that dish, are going to be accurate, right? If we decide that our steak is going to be AAA Kobe beef and we start using Uruguayan single A, we're going to save some money, but our customers aren't going to be happy, right? So what we use to set our price isn't relevant anymore, right? Recipes are our source for our ingredient quantities using the costing sheets. So then we're going to be using them to determine how much we need to order. In later on chapters, we're going to talk about forecasting. And once we decide how many customers are coming in, how many customers do we think are going to have our mushroom risotto? So that's going to allow us to know that we need to have this many pounds of mushrooms and this much pounds of rice to make sure that we can serve those customers the consistent product, right? They are a control tool for the kitchen. I used to call it my Bible and when I had the kitchens, right? So I would have the recipes, the cost in them. There were no secrets, right? Plating diagrams. If somebody stole a recipe, they stole a recipe, whatever. I didn't care. My kitchen was consistent, right? I had binders in every copies in multiple stations, and I updated them quarterly so that the prices were all correct, right? Everybody knew what every dish cost and what we were making on it from a profit standpoint. Distribute computerized, yield adjusted versions daily, and or oversee production closely to confirm compliance. If you don't follow the standardized recipe, everything else goes out the window. We have no consistency for our guests. So, you know what? They came in for the shrimp linguine and they got 8 shrimp because Bob was cooking and 6 shrimp because Susan was cooking. It's not good for the customer, right? They want to know what their expectation is, what they're going to get, right? And again, if we're putting 8 shrimp on the plate when this person's cooking and 6 when this person's cooking, our costing just goes out the window. Are we accurate? Or are we not accurate? We don't know, right? So we come to portion and quality control. It's critical that we follow standardized recipes to make sure that our customers are happy, and then they're going to keep coming back. If we're kind of bouncing around and our recipes aren't the same, they come in, order the same thing and get a different version every time they come in, they're not going to be coming in, right? We're going to lose revenue, right? We use our standardized recipes. They're going to keep our costing accurate, which prevents excessive food cost and thus profit loss, right? Often monitored by the expediter or the sous chef per the chef standard, right? So who's watching the pass and food's coming out? Does it match the picture? Is the portion size correct? Is there enough pasta on the plate? Are there 6 shrimp? Are there supposed to be 8, right? And then obviously portion control is going to allow for a little bit of variance when you're talking things like steak, right? You have a 6-ounce steak, well, maybe it's, 5 3/4 ounces or 6 1/4 ounce, right? Depending on how you're cutting them. They're not always exactly portioned to size, right? So how do we portion and how do we make sure that we're on track with them? Well, we use a weight, right? So we can use a spring scale, a beam scale, or digital scales. Obviously, the digital scale is going to be the most accurate there. Spring scale, probably the second most accurate, but those springs do wear out over time. And then a beam scale is trusting your eye. Is it balanced or not, right? Volume. We have lots of different tools that we can use to measure volume. Measuring cups, ladles, portion scoops, ramekins, slotted spoons, serving containers, a coffee cup, a beer mug. Soup cups in a restaurant are generally portioned 6-ounce soup cups or 8-ounce. That's what you're going to buy so that it's consistent. You fill them up always to the same amount, right? A volume can be, the blue bowl in the kitchen, as long as you know what it costs to put your ingredient in that. I'll tell you a story when I took over a hotel. We had a pub and we're making nachos in that pub. And on Thursday nights, we sold a ton of nachos. And then on Tuesday nights, we didn't sell any nachos. And I was like, it didn't make sense to me. We had the same number of customers in. I started looking into who was working. I had Bob working on Thursday night. He was putting 2 handfuls of cheese on his nachos. And then I had Fred working on Tuesday. He was still putting 2 handfuls of cheese on his nachos. But Bob was way bigger hands than Fred, right? So it's about consistency. We then found a blue bowl that held 2 cups of cheese, and we used that. And everybody had the same. No problem, right? Everybody was getting the same amount of cheese on their nachos, but we costed out that blue bowl in our recipe at 2 cups worth of cheese, right? So it allows consistency. It doesn't necessarily have to be a measured tool, but it needs to be consistent. We can't use the blue bowl, then the red bowl, then the blue bowl. We need to use the same size portion every time as per what we've decided to use in our recipe, right? And the third way is obviously count. Like I was talking about the shrimp. Are there 6 shrimp on the plate or are there 8? What are they supposed to be? And then we count. We make sure that they're there, right? I mean, with a steak dish, it's pretty simple. Is there a steak there? Yeah, 1 steak. Okay. Did he serve 2? Well, that's wrong, right? So simple count, right? If it's asparagus, should it be 6 spears? Should it be 12 spears, right? The expediter can really do a quick count to make sure that they've got the right amount of ingredients on the plate, right? So this all ties into quality control, portion control, cost control, all ties in, right? And that's where we've got our expediter, right? We should have our expediter catch and correct those areas before they reach the customers. Whether that expediter is on the wait staff side of the pass or in the kitchen, someone needs to be that final check of the dishes before they go out. They're going to catch undercooked food, incorrect garnish, wilted or unattractive components, sloppy plate presentation, error on the guest special request, right? All of these things are what, if we don't make sure they're correct, that plate's coming back to the kitchen and we're going to have to redo it. And that's just going to mess the whole rhythm of the kitchen going on, right? So who your expediter is, if it's a lead cook on the line, if it's a sous chef on the pass, if it's a front of the house manager that's expediting, there should be somebody responsible for that final look at the plate before it goes out, right? Okay, so this concludes our chapter on recipe costing, and the sort of standardized recipes and portion control sort of all ties in together. You're going to move on to the next section on setting selling price on the next set of videos.